so honored to join you all. You know, I was telling Brad that at this stage in my career, I really want to pay it forward. I really want to help. I hope that what we can talk about here today is something that helps you all, inspires you, makes you think, walk out the door, maybe wanting to do something that maybe you never thought of before, right? And the fact is, and I love that you're here hearing me, but I'm sure you have more experience than I do, like, you know, for your years. But let me give you my story and see if that helps. What I want to do is I want to make sure that this is very interactive. I don't want you to be asleep on me, right? So raise your hand and ask me questions during the middle. I'm totally fine with being interrupted. In fact, I think it makes it much more interesting for everyone. And I'm willing to go off on any tangent that you want. Normally, I'm up here talking about data. I'm talking about what I think is coming in mobile and social media, digital video consumption patterns. And to talk about myself, I have to be honest, is a little bit strange. I don't really normally talk about myself. But let me see if I can do it justice. I wanted to start, first of all, with understanding of just my personal career path, right? It's not everyone's career path. You know, you have your own path. In fact, yesterday at the Apple meeting, or was it the day before yesterday? I'm losing track of time. But when the Apple meeting happened, one of the big quotes that I wanted to bring here today was to follow a vision, not a path. I thought that was pretty good. Don't follow a path. That is something that's already been done before. You want to do something that is unique to you. And I did something unique to me too. What I did was I started off very basic things, right? I started working when I was 13 years old, and I was a retail clerk, I was a bank teller, I did soldering printed circuit boards. And I was actually kind of bad at that, I must admit. It turns out that if you're is anyone in engineering here? If you have a previous background in engineering, you know that you have to actually put those electronics in the right way, or they don't work. I didn't know that. Anyway, there's a reason why those resistors have little color bands. Who knew? So I did that, and I thought, wow, I really want to go to college because this is not fun. I'm not going to do this for a living. So what I did was I went ahead and I got my education, and that was super fun, especially go Trojans, right? So I had a great time with football. And I do want to say some things, come back to saying some things about, you know, my undergrad and what I wish I had done a little bit more of, which might surprise you. Then I went into advertising. I had always had this dream of this fantastic, exciting life of being in advertising. It turns out not to be quite as exciting as they make it out to, but it was a great experience. And for me, what happened was I was in a field called media planning. Has anyone ever been in advertising here? No advertisers in the room. Well, let me explain to you. A media planner is the person who decides where to put all the advertising. And that person looks at a lot of data, and they use that data to determine what the best place is. And in my case, I was that person who had to look at a bunch of data. And I can't even calculate a tip at a restaurant. I'm really bad at math. It's just not my thing. All of a sudden, here I am looking at spreadsheets of information, trying to figure out what to do about it. And it turned out to be really, really good for me in the career I chose because I look at data a lot. And it was great that I started off that way in my career. As you mentioned, I went to 4 startups, and those startups got bought by Nielsen Media Research. Anyone know what Nielsen Media Research is? You guys, you're not in the advertising media world. Let me explain. When you watch television, there's a company who determines what the ratings are for every television show, which is what advertisers use to pay for the ads that they put on television. And the company that does all of that is called Nielsen Media Research. And so that company is really the ones who are responsible, either in a good way or bad way, for the ads that you see on television today. So I was there. I became a director of product management. Product management is super fantastically fun. Anyone just want to go into product management here? Well, what do you guys want to do? Somebody tell me, what do you want to do? Accountant. What do you want to do? Finance. You. In the plaid shirt. Yeah, you.
Not sure.
Not sure. Okay, what are your choices?
It could be pretty much anything, I guess.
Whoa, okay. All right, well, let me suggest media. Um, in the salmon chair, what do you want to do? Accounting. Okay, a lot of finance people. Awesome. All right, so by show of hands, who's accounting finance? Wow. Okay, who's marketing? All right, okay. So I have to admit that working at startups, does anyone want to work at a startup? Okay. Let me just tell you, it's fun. And what's great about it is that you don't have any path to follow. No one's blazed any path for you. You get to do it on your own, so that's exciting. It could be very lucrative if you work at a startup and it goes public and you hear about the stories about all the millionaires from Facebook and all of that stuff. I would encourage you all, because Utah has a great potential to be a fantastic new startup scene. So I would encourage you all to be thinking about startups, thinking about starting your own, because there's also a lot of good angel funding money here in Utah, much more so than in Denver at the moment. So, you know, think about those things, but it is hard, very hard work. There is nothing but, you know, pouring your heart and soul into a startup business to get it going. And for me, after 4 of them, I was a little bit beat. I was kind of done with startups for a while. So I had an opportunity to move here to Utah and change my life. And so it looked something like this. Oh, you know what? I do want to say one thing, though. I did have a few life events. Those things happen. And you know what? The thing about work and your career is that it has to fit with your life. If it's not fitting with your life, you got to do something different, right? Because you don't want to go to your grave wishing that you would worked harder. You want to go with a full family, a full life, a bunch of experiences that made you joyful. And for me, it was traveling. I did a lot of travel. It was having my boy Lincoln, which was one of the best things I ever did. And it was having a few professional accomplishments that I can look back on and feel kind of proud of. They're sort of bucket list items. And I would also encourage you to have some bucket list items as far as what professional accomplishments you want to have. Mine were, I wanted to do something that would be attached to my name for a while. And one of those things, you know, one of those things that you can do that's attached to your name for a while is you can get granted a patent. And that was something that I thought, you know, would check a box for me. And so I had an opportunity to get a patent, and I was able to do that. And when I got the letter from the government saying the patent had been granted and my name was as an author on it, it was a proud moment for me. That's one of those things that, you know, you can kind of say it's in the records. You existed on the planet at one time. I will say, though, that if anyone wants to debate me about the U.S. Patent Office and whether we should have it or not, you know, come talk to me later, because it took me 6 years to get that patent. It was, and a lot of attorneys. So I didn't like that process. But anyway, the other thing that happened, and you know, I hate to almost even bring it up because it sounds a little boastful, but I was just named by Fortune magazine as one of the top 20 big data analysts in the United States. And I'm the only one from Utah, and I looked at the list, and it was full of PhDs and very mathy things. And I thought, how am I on this list? But it was a moment for me. It was a proud moment of a national kind of achievement that I made. And frankly, it was sort of like being the Super Bowl quarterback, you know, and getting the MVP award, because I have a team, and that team basically got me there. So I'm very grateful that I have that I work at Adobe, and that I'm allowed to do such innovative, cool stuff. So that's sort of what I do. Are there any questions about the sort of career path and what kind of career path you're on, and what kinds of things that you're thinking about as you go forward? You guys got to, you know, work with me here. Somebody ask me a question. Ask me a question. Yes.
Would you say that you missed that end of accounting or the financial understanding of the business world, or do you feel like you made up for it or learned it as you went on?
Right. So, okay, so good question. For me, when I was, I did all of my work in advertising before I went to get my MBA, and I really didn't have a lot of accounting, finance, stats, you know, kind of background. And I was forced into taking it because it was a requirement. And that was one of the good things for me about MBA program, was that it really gave me that breadth of knowledge about business that I wouldn't have gotten just by staying in the career path I'd been in. So, you know, that is one of the best things that you're encountering right now, is the ability to dip your toe into a lot of waters. And when you come out of it, the opportunity is that you can go in any new direction. It's almost like this big hub that you're in the middle of, and you can fly off in any direction from it. A lot of people do use their MBA to change jobs. Some of them use it to kind of go and advance in the jobs they're in. But for the most part, I knew I loved what I did in marketing. I wanted to round out my experiences, and so I did. I have to admit, though, accounting and me, we're not kind of a good mix. So I had to work really hard to get a decent grade in accounting. So I kind of knew that wasn't going to be the way that I would go on my exit. But it was very good for me. I will say, though, all of you finance folks, every single person in all of business ends up with a budget, and I have one too, and I have to manage it, and I have to, you know, make sure I understand what's going on with regards to my spending needs, my spending patterns, the budgeting cycle. All of that stuff still matters to me. And in fact, when I was in the startup situation, it was even more important because I was dealing with venture capitalists, and many of them are all finance people. And so from my perspective, understanding how to work with finance people and people who think in the terms of finance is one of the greatest things that you can take away from your MBA experience if that's not your career path. And I will say, on the other hand, that if you are going into finance, working with people like me, who are fairly undisciplined and don't really like to be told no, and don't like to follow any sort of budget, it restricts us. We're kind of these mavericks who just want to go do what we want to do, and we have good reasons for it, but we don't have to explain it to anybody. And so sometimes, you know, there's a bit of a conflict between those types of personalities. At Adobe, we use this personality type matrix, and there are a million of them, so, you know, use which one you want. But do you guys use a personality matrix for your students?
Not for students, but we have done those.
Okay. Well, it's one of those things that's actually pretty interesting, especially because interpersonal skills and communication is the biggest thing that you need to take away from your MBA program. More so than learning accounting, more so than any class that you have. It's actually your peers, the people sitting right next to you in this room, who are the most important thing for you to be working with and understanding how to engage with for maximum teamwork and productivity going forward. All right, so I told you that I kind of went around different places. This is the other thing that happens. It depends on what you want out of your career. But if you want a career in, let's say, finance, and let's say you want your career to be in banking, there are some companies here in Utah that are pretty strong in banking. But there are not that many that are super strong in banking, and so you're limited by what is available in this state, right? So here's what I did. I was born in that area, and I went to school in that area. Now, why did I do that? It was a very strategic decision on my part to get out of my comfort zone and go into a place where I could meet a different set of people. I wanted to be in advertising. I knew I wanted to be in advertising before I left for my college experience, and I had only a certain few places where advertising was going to be big. Los Angeles was one of them. It was the closest big place. San Francisco was actually a big banking city. And at the time, Silicon Valley was there, but it wasn't nearly as big as it is today. So I said, okay, strategically, I got to put myself in a place where the maximum opportunities are. And advertising, trying to get your first job in advertising is not so easy. So I want to go to a school that has lots of network connections, that has the ability for me to then transition into a job in advertising. It actually worked. But I hated Los Angeles. So after I had a little bit of experience, I went back home. This is actually my place of comfort. It's my place where I could kind of recharge, and it's just that comfortable feeling for me. And I also then started to go into that startup scene that we talked about. Then I discovered that I needed an MBA. Why did I need an MBA? I needed an MBA because I was an advertising agency person, and I wanted to go into marketing at a major corporation, and I was having trouble getting in. Has anyone decided to get their MBA because they wanted an entry into a job field that they couldn't get? Okay, so a few of you, right? And that was why I did it too. It turned out there were like much better reasons to go get my MBA than I realized, but I went and got it, and I will say that Northwestern for me was one of the greatest experiences of my life, and so, you know, enjoy this time. This is a time that you will never repeat again, as you have an opportunity, you are experienced enough and you have lived enough life to understand what you're talking about in school now, but you also are so moldable and new in what you can do that it can take you in all those directions. So what I did was went back home. I actually had opportunities to go live in the Midwest and work at a consumer packaged goods company, because Kellogg's big thing is to put people into Kraft and Johnson & Johnson and Ralston Purina, you know, that sort of environment, where you become a brand manager and you work your way up through brand management to become a leader of those types of companies. I ultimately chose not to do that. Why? Because Amazon had just launched. And I realized very quickly that the world of computers back home was about to catch fire. So I went back home to catch fire with it, which is why we did all those startups. And then I got really tired of that. And I'd never been to Utah before. So I guess this is one of the other things I will tell you, is when it comes to where you're going to live, take risks. I understand you probably have families. I understand you probably have kids at this stage in your life. And it makes it a little hard to go and just go wherever the wind blows. But the reality is that if you want your career to be as, you know, in top form, sometimes you're going to have to go take a risk and go somewhere completely different that you've never been before. And I did that coming here. And it has turned out to be so mind-blowingly different than I expected, both in terms of my professional career, which has never been better. Even though I'm not in the center hub of all the things that Silicon Valley has to offer, I am in a place where I am having much more balanced life, which has turned out to make me a much better and more productive worker. But these are sort of the areas where the hot spots of my job are. So if you're in marketing, this is really where you'd want to be. If you're in finance, it's New York, it's San Francisco. Look at the map and try and figure out where that is, because you're going to find that where you are right now might not be the place for you to start out after your MBA program, and that you can come back home after you've got that experience built up and take a big role here where folks are going to really value the experience that you've brought. All right, let's talk about what I think went well in my career. Looking back, all right, network. As I mentioned to you already, this room of people, the room out there, the dining hall that I just walked through that I didn't know existed, which is pretty cool. You guys are awesome, lucky that you have all of that there. That is the main thing that you need to do while you're here. You need to build up as many connections with people as you can, because that network is your asset. It's your personal asset that you carry with you forever. Make sure that if you don't have a LinkedIn profile and you're not linking with people, because when you leave, you're going to probably lose track of each other. I'm sure that as students, you will have connections as alumni that you'll be able to foster your relationships with each other. But you want to see where people have gone. And if you're friends with them now, start connecting. Who's using LinkedIn? Awesome, good. All right, so make sure you start linking with people. You probably want to create a little group just so you can remember, because believe me, after 25 years, it gets a little hard to remember where you met everyone. But you want to make sure you've got that going, and not just that you have your network, but that you continue to foster your network as your career grows. Ongoing education. It is not going to end. And one of the things that bums me out, to be honest, is that I'm not back in business school today. If I could go back and see what they're teaching now, it would be very different. Remember that the internet was on the cusp of existing when I got my master's degree. So a lot of the things that you're experiencing today, as far as what you can learn in analytics and in sales process, in marketing, it's all different. But the way of thinking about things is not different, and the way of researching things is not different, but the actual fact of what they're teaching you is different. And I continue to learn. For me, some companies, for example, will pay for ongoing education and will send you back to these very expensive executive programs. My school at Kellogg has programs that last 4 days that cost $15,000. And my company does not pay that. If you work in investment banking, if you work in management consulting, things like that, then they'll pay for things like ongoing education at that cost. High tech is not going to pay for that. So what do? Well, I go to Coursera and I take classes. I still take classes all the time. There's one on executive leadership right now that I'm, auditing. I don't care if I get grades on it because I'm not trying to prove that I'm smart or that I can achieve those grades anymore. But I do want to know what the current thinking is with regards to leadership. And so I study. I continue to. I read a lot. Whenever I'm on an airplane, that's my time, and I read. And actually, if I'm being honest, I've spent 60 hours on airplanes in the past 4 weeks. And so it gives me an awful lot of opportunity to catch up. What else do I read? I happen to like Scientific American. I get a lot of ideas out of Scientific American because it covers a wide variety of topics that I can then put into some sort of context in my business world. It's just a personal preference. But if it's Harvard Business Review, if it's Wired Magazine, if it's Inc. Magazine, if it's finance and investment, whatever, find those things that you're going to be keeping track of and continue to learn after you're out of school. Right now, you might be almost completely overloaded with stuff to read. So I'm not saying at the moment, but as you're kind of going through your career. Being a team player. One of the things that I don't know that they emphasized enough in school when I was in school was that the ability to work in teams is going to make or break your career. Even if you're in a career where you think it's mostly solo, it's not. So that ability to work in teams and to be able to know how to give and take, how to not be the ball hog, but also how to not let the balls drop, how that teamwork type work is very important. And I hope that you're doing a lot of that in class. Are we doing a lot of that in class? Yes, good. It's going to be something that you have to practice because we all have our tendencies. I will tell you on the personality scale thing, I'm called a red. Red means that, sort of damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead person. I don't go and collect a lot of feedback. I don't tell anybody why I'm doing what I'm doing. I just go. And I want people to follow me because I have a pretty big wake and let's just go this way. Well, it turns out that some people are actually more interested in being collaborative and social. And what they want to do is they want to get each other's opinions and really talk it out and get together. And they're just really much more interested in being social. In our personality matrix, they call that a blue. And for somebody who really wants to be social and talk things out, to work with somebody who's like me, who doesn't really want to talk about anything and we just want to go, is really frustrating. So for us to figure out how to work together is a challenge. And as a team, it's better if we have people like that. The other type of person that we face, and this is somebody like, imagine, this is an actual real example of a person I know who it took him 3 months to buy a toaster. Do you know anyone who will research the most mundane thing until, yeah, it might even be you, right? This is the type of person who tends to gravitate towards accounting and finance, to be honest. They're very detailed. And they want to research everything, and they want everything to be perfect. It has to have every little thing in its place. And those type of people hate people like me because I don't care about all those details, and I don't want to research things to the nth degree, and they think I'm rash. And I actually think that they're slow and stodgy. And so, think about just that by itself is 3 different types of people, and there are many more than that, who have to try and work together on a team. And if we don't know how to work with each other and appreciate what each other brings, we're going to be completely dysfunctional, and it's going to crash everyone's career. Okay, unique and differentiated capabilities. Don't just be in finance. Don't just be in accounting. Figure out what piece of it you're going to just knock the cover off the ball. Because there are so many people doing what you do. And you have to stand out in this crowd. That's just it. The reality of your career is that you have to stand out in a crowd. And you have something that you do better than anyone else. It might be something from your background. It might be something from your personality type. It's going to be there. You have to find what it is. Play to your strengths. You have to know what they are, of course. So being introspective helps. And I want to spend a minute in the strengths and weaknesses conversation, but I'll do that right at the end. What didn't go so well? I didn't actually ever encounter very many mentors. I pretty much learned everything the hard way, I feel like. I mean, maybe I didn't, but I sort of feel like I learned it all the hard way. It is tough, and I try to mentor myself, and I will tell you that as we get up in our career, we tend not to have a lot of time. It's been very difficult. I actually saw Delta Airlines created this really fascinating new thing, and I hope it takes off. But it's actually something that we can think about different ways of doing. It's called Innovation Class, and they just launched it. And what it is you sign up to be on a flight with somebody who you want to mentor you, and then you get seated next to them, and you get an opportunity to be mentored in flight. Isn't that cool? Yeah, and Delta Airlines gets that opportunity to have, executives in their system helping and mentoring. And as many of us know, we have all that time to kill on an airplane. It's a good opportunity to, sit down and spend some time with someone, right? Because most of us are in flight a lot. Work-life balance didn't go so well for me. And it was a problem because what I discovered after moving to Utah is that it really makes your work better. It really does. So now, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. Exercise, I wasn't exercising. I didn't have time for it. I got up early. I started taking calls with England, 6 a.m., and then I was taking calls with Asia Pacific at 8 p.m., and then I had developers in India in the middle of the night. And so I was like round-the-clock worker. And it really hurt my ability to see clearly, to think clearly. And it was health related, exercise, eating right. It was related to taking time out to be with my friends. And this is where I let my network kind of slide a little bit, and I also let my friendships slide because I didn't have time for them. And it also impacted my relationship with my husband, who is now my ex-husband. And so that didn't go so well. Pay attention to your work-life balance. Make sure it doesn't tilt. If it's tilted too far for too long, it's going to hurt you professionally and personally. So big learning for me. Monetary compensation. All right. This one is kind of like really hard to talk about, but let's just be honest. Many times, especially as women in the workforce, we find it difficult to ask for what we're worth. And I've had that difficulty as well. And so as a result, I feel like others who maybe don't have as much experience as I am are getting paid more and are at higher level positions than I am. And so I don't feel like I did a very good job of managing my career from that perspective. And I don't have any advice for you on how to do a better job than me, but if you have advice for me, please come tell me. Because it's one of those things that I think it's such a delicate balance. You want to make sure that you're not being overly needy as an employee and being irritating. But then on the other hand, you have to also be, the one to stand up for yourself. Because in business today, nobody's going to stand up for you. It is kind of a, live your own career kind of thing. Your boss is not really that interested in how well compensated you are. They're only interested in whether or not you're going to stay or go if they want you to stay. And so they're only going to think about what it's going to take to keep you to stay. And if they think that they've got you nailed at whatever combination of things that they've given you, then they won't give you that much more money. So it can be very frustrating. What I wish I knew. Success. I thought that success was having the right answer. It was being smart. It was having the experience and making sure that I was the smartest person in the room or had the best approach or problem solved greater or knew how to do research. That's what I thought. And I kind of scratched my head, frankly, for years, wondering why that wasn't enough. Why wasn't it enough to just be right? If it was a true meritocracy, then my merit should cause my career to be good. Well, what I discovered is that it's really not that important to be right, per se. What's more important is to get other people to follow you, to get other people to want to believe that you're right. And that's all emotional quotient, that's EQ. And go and look it up if you don't know about EQ. EQ is the most important factor that you can bring to a job to make you successful. EQ is the thing that separates you from being a manager or director from being a CEO or a senior vice president. Because those folks are not any smarter than you. They just got people to want to promote them and to follow them. And they did that by their emotional connections, their ability to understand, to empathize, to know when to shut up and when to talk, their ability to come across as humble and not something that you want to knock off their pedestal, but somebody that you want to get behind and raise up. All of that combined makes you successful or not. And I did not know that. Here's where I'm going to talk about my undergrad and my graduate experience. Once again, back in my mind, thinking that I was going to be successful because I was smart, I didn't socialize as much in school as I should have. So I actually recently wrote a blog post on LinkedIn. And if you guys want to link with me, send me a LinkedIn request. You can see my blog posts and stuff like that. I've been trying to write more because that's my new thing. I just feel like I want to share my thoughts now. Well, I just recently wrote a blog post because somebody asked me what I would say to a person who is just entering undergraduate. And when I wrote was that I wished I had partied more. I know, and I said, I know all the parents that are reading this are cringing right now, but the reality is that those socialized connections, the ability to understand how to have EQ, comes from these types of settings where you have a safe place to socialize with each other. And I will tell you that as you go, and this is kind of cruel and harsh, I'm just going to call them like I see them because I'm a very direct person. When you go into your career and you start working, nobody's going to tell you when you're making social mistakes. They will just step on your dead body on the way up, right? So if you are being viewed in the office as the know-it-all that no one wants to work with, no one's going to tell you. If you are being viewed as the doormat that everyone thinks they can just, walk all over, no one's going to tell you. Whatever kind of personality you bring to the office, if it doesn't work for socializing in a large group setting, you're going to find that you're not reaching up and climbing the ladder as fast, and you don't know why. So the best place to learn it is right here, where it's very safe and where your friends will kind of tell you, hey, you're being a jerk. And by the way, if you're a friend of somebody and they're being a jerk, you need to help them figure out how to be social. That's part of your job as their friend, okay? So think about that. The art of self-promotion. I talked about that a little bit. It kind of comes into monetary compensation. It comes into other areas as well. I really thought, again, if you're smart and you're good and you do a good job, that everyone will recognize that and you're good and your career will rise. And it's just not true. The reality is so different than that, and it feels so awkward to go around saying, hey, guess what I did? Isn't that cool? And forwarding messages onto your boss that were, kudos that you got. It's awkward. I hate it. But the reality is that they're so busy at those levels that they don't know that you're performing in a certain way. And it takes some effort to make sure that they understand that you are doing a good job. And so you really do have to do that. But also, again, using your EQ, finding a way to do that that doesn't come across as being ridiculously arrogant and overly used car salesman-ish. Time management is so, so, so important. There is never enough time for all the work you have to do. Prioritization is the most important thing that you will find make you successful, and that's the thing that CEOs figured out how to do. And senior vice presidents, they figured out how to prioritize because they don't pay attention to things that aren't going to drive their career. And sometimes that's weird because you think, well, the business needs me to pay attention to this thing, but it really doesn't do much for me. And this is, at Adobe, I have performance indicators. I have key performance indicators, and most of you will too. When you're out in the workforce, you're going to have a key KPI that you have to track to. That key performance indicator for me says that I have to get 450 press articles per quarter. That's all I got to do, right? So If I'm not spending my time making sure I'm hitting that goal, I'm wasting my time. And I'll tell you right now, being here with you all is not my work goal. But I actually already kicked butt on my KPI, so I'm good, right? So that whole Apple thing just was a bonanza for me this week. So I'm done. I accomplished that. Now I want to do some things that make me personally happy. And coming here to talk to you guys is one of those, personally happy things I just want to share. So the work-life balance, time management, making sure that you are hitting all of your major goals, and then you can kind of move on to all the things that might be the second or third tier on what you have to accomplish. Play to your strengths. If you are good at something, be better at it. One of the things that I spent years trying to do was be good at math, and that's not going to happen. It's just, I can't, that's not my thing, right? But I kept getting this feedback, well, Tamara, you're not very detail-oriented, and Tamara, you need to be able to do this better in, data calculations and all this stuff. And I thought, oh gosh, I have to spend time, making myself better at these things that I'm not good at. And I spent so much time getting an itty-bitty little return on working on my weaknesses. And in the performance evaluations that you get as an employee, you will find that your boss is going to spend a lot of time talking about your weaknesses. And if you kind of sit there and go, oh, okay, all right, and then you walk away and that's what you do is you go spend time working on your weaknesses, you have missed the boat. Because you are not going to be able to increase your marketability in your weakness area nearly as well as you are by taking the strengths that they point out and going and taking them up another level and another level until you're Olympic athlete level at your strength. So unless it's going to get you fired, nod your head politely and say, thank you, that was very insightful, I appreciate your feedback. Walk out the room and pay attention to your strengths. Worry less and have more fun. If you don't bring joy to everything you do, then don't do it. If it doesn't make you happy, what you're doing, go find something else. Not for money, not for career, just go find something that makes you happy. Because right now, I can take the stage and I can talk about what I do, and I come from a place of joy and enjoyment of my job that makes me powerful. Because you can't fake that. If you're not happy at what you're doing, it just permeates every single thing you say, how you act, your body language. It's not good. And I see people at my work who are not happy with what they're doing, and I think to myself, wow, I almost wish I could tell them, but then again, you don't tell people things when you're in a work setting anymore. They're kind of not your friends, right? So I think, wow, that person sees everything as half empty, and they are moaning about all this stuff, and when they're in a meeting, they're just such a downer, and nobody really wants to be around that person. So if you're that person, or you ever think you're that person, or you have that moment of, wow, maybe I'm that person, do a gut check, and if you're not happy, go find something else, really. Even if that's what you studied here for, and you have to take 15 steps back to go be happy, don't just keep after it if it's not making you happy. And I'm going to have to tell you, accounting folks, you may not enjoy the routineness of what you're about to do. Okay, thank you. All right, my advice, taking the bull by the horns. As I mentioned to you, we are not going to have anybody else help us. We have to drive our careers. We have to drive every step of what we want to do, being very strategic. Investing in yourself. This includes your health, your appearance. I dress up for work, not because I have to. At Adobe, I could wear shorts, I could wear jeans, I could wear whatever I want to. I dress up for work. I wear professional outfits at work because I am on stage. I am always on stage. No matter if I'm at the coffee place getting something from the kitchen, or if I'm in a meeting, or if I'm sitting at my desk, people are making evaluations of you when you're at work all the time. So think about that. Do you want to convey that you are unkempt? Do you want to convey that you are a rebel? Maybe you do. I mean, it depends, right? What if your job is, sort of running a manufacturing organization and you need to be one of the, the people who, can be related to, right? So maybe you do want to be like that. That's okay. I'm not suggesting that you have to be any particular way, but just pay attention to the fact that you are on stage. Ask for help. I don't do this often enough. I really should do more. Ask for help. Now, be careful though, because some people are actually not helping you, just so you know. Some people are actually trying to hurt you, even though they think that you think that they're being helpful. So just be careful who you trust, who you ask for help, but do ask for help. And that's where your network comes in. Because the network of people here in school that you have are friendlies, right? So ask for help from your alumni peers, and they will help you. Staying healthy, we talked about. Creating a personal brand, that's about playing to your strengths, and developing your ability to read people and understand their motivations. That's EQ. That is what I have to tell you about my career, my advice, and I would love to hear from you guys if you have questions for me, if you have random thoughts you want to talk about. Yes, go ahead.
You talked about networking, you talked about relationships outside of work, and you talked a little bit about relationships at work and how it's you got to be careful about who you trust. Can you talk a little bit about relationships at work from your experience?
Right. Okay. Definitely. So
and also you mentioned you don't ask help. So are you talking about outside of work or at work? Or?
Yeah. So okay. So the question, in case you didn't hear it, is: can I talk a little bit more about how you figure out who to trust and who to network with at work, and then how do you talk about how to ask for help and who do you ask for help? Let me start with the help part first. So for me, I ask for help mostly from people outside of my work, right? And so I'm asking them things like, can you review this document that I'm going to send out? Or can you review this email that maybe might sound a little bit terse or something like that? I might ask them for help in managing my ability to have my social cues correct, right? Because if I'm angry or frustrated, I am not necessarily going to come off in a way that's effective to work with other people in my office. So sometimes if I'm feeling like that kind of emotion going on inside me, I will ask outside people for help. Who do I ask? My mom. I ask my friends. I ask sometimes my alumni contacts, sometimes my LinkedIn contacts. There are a couple people at work that I might ask. It depends. I don't ask my boss because my boss is evaluating me, right? And so in many cases, I don't want to ask my boss to help me with something. I'm not saying all cases, but in many cases, that doesn't work for me. As far as internally, let's talk about the network. When I'm deciding who I'm going to trust, and I have made some exceedingly massive gaffes on this front, and I will tell you a story. I was working with this senior vice president actually, and he was making me crazy. I could not stand working for this man anymore. He worked out of New York City, and he was very much not aligned with my way of thinking. And he said to me on the phone, he said, Tamara, you always want to turn left when everyone else wants to turn right. And I was being a rebel, but I was right? Going back to the whole, like, are you right or wrong? Well, I was right. But everyone else wanted to go the other direction, and I was always the one kind of putting the fly in the ointment. And so I was really frustrated with him, and so I spoke to somebody who worked for him who I was peers with. And here's what happened. I went to him and I said, Charlie, I'm really frustrated with Manish, and I need your advice on how I should handle it when he doesn't like it that I want to propose something different than the group think in the room. And he gave me advice, and he talked to me about it, and I said, I really feel like I probably should work for somebody else, don't you think? And he said, well, yeah, that might be a good idea. I said, maybe I could work for you, Charlie. And what happened after that meeting was that Charlie went to Manish and told Manish that I was unhappy and that he should take away all my projects. And he did. And so a person who was below me got raised up above me and was given all my work. And I quit. Kind of major. And it was all because I trusted somebody that I shouldn't have trusted, because I thought I had a relationship with them at work. So I do probably suggest that you either know that person super, super well, or you look outside for that sort of support. Just my own impressions. And you know, not every world is as dog eat dog as the one I've lived in. Advertising, high tech, startups, they can be very, very cruel. But investment banking and stuff like that, finance can be too. So just, you know, be careful. Yeah.
Okay. I noticed on one of the slides that you've had a lot of employees in the past. What are some things that you're looking for when you're maybe doing interviews? Who are the people you're trying to surround yourself with?
Oh, I love that question. That's a good one. I'll just take this one. Is that all right? And then you can go to your classes or lunch or whatever it is. Employees. Here is my personal opinion. I look for attitude more than anything else. Your enthusiasm, your desire to want the job, the sort of expectation I can have that you're going to bring it. You're going to put your heart and soul into the things that I care about and really work hard for me is number one. Absolutely number one. So don't go into an interview and be all like, hello, here I am. Yeah, well, I could probably do that. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, I am so excited to be here, and this is the best thing, and I just think you want to bring that enthusiasm. If you don't have that enthusiasm and you can't muster it, don't interview for that job. It's not the right one for you. So that's number one. Number two, you have to be able to show me that you can work with the other people that I have on my team. So I look for a well-rounded person. I'm looking for somebody who's got the opportunity to blend in and fit in, but also not just the same person, but different. So you can fit, but you're also different. I just hired somebody new. His name's Joanza, and he is a stats guy. He's got this statistical background that's phenomenal, but he's also got a lot of really cool like personal backstory to him. And he brought diversity into my group that was fantastic, some skills that we didn't have, but also this attitude that was, impressed me. And I get a lot of resumes, and I don't have many openings. I know many of you might even want to work at Adobe. It's very hard to get your first job there. But that's, for me, the most important thing. Different hiring managers are different, though. So that's one of those things where your ability to read people is kind of important. Because we'll give you clues in our interview as to what kind of person we are, but pay attention, because you might find that somebody's really all business, and they don't, they're like quizzing you or they're asking you to take a test or something like that. Then they're going to be more of a skills-based decision. My team is going to be much more of a fit, diversity, what you bring to the table in terms of your attitude. So, well, thank you guys so much. It has been great to talk to you.